So you wanted an MX-5, you wanted to live mortgage-free by the sea, and now you've got that. But that wasn't what life was always like, is it?
Far from it, Stuart. Okay, so yes, so I'll tell you a little bit about my background and then how I got to where I am now. So I'm an occupational therapist by background, worked in the health service for about 18 years. And after 18, in fact, less than that, I realised that actually the health service is an amazingly unhealthy place to work.
Right.
So I can laugh about it now, but I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And as
Okay.
a clinician, I've worked with people with MS. And to me, it equated to basically being in a wheelchair and not being independent. And actually, I know now that, like lots of illnesses, there's a whole spectrum of kind of ways of managing or not managing. But it meant I packed in my career.
Mm.
And so I didn't plan to spend my entire working life working in the health service, but it just brought it to an abrupt end.
Yeah.
And my husband said, do that thing, that thing that you like. And I thought, yeah, okay, I'll do that thing, and I'll say what that is in a minute. And then, because I wasn't sure what my quality of life was going to be like, the wheelchair and the lack of independence, and there's nothing like being given a 3-year driving license. So you have to tell the DVLA, obviously, and they issue with a 3-year license. So out of that came the MX-5. So I'm a very practical, sensible kind of person, and the MX-5 is nothing like that. And so we thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a really impractical, fun car? And we went on this goal setting workshop, and we thought, it just seems really mad, but yeah, let's go for it. And then from that came, let's live by the sea, let's not have a mortgage. And we achieved all of that. So we got the MX-5 in 2011, and we envisaged having the car for our 10th wedding anniversary, and we came down to where we live now, which is on the coast, Lyme Regis, and we drove down in that brand new car, blue, press a button and the roof comes down in 12 seconds. It's gorgeous. Yes. And then we came and lived here almost 10 years ago to the day.
Oh, wow. Fabulous. Yeah. Fabulous. So you've got that lifestyle now, but tell us a bit more about that journey. So I know, apart from the business that we're both in together, you've also been involved in property, I think. Is that right?
I have, yes. So when I first met the man I'm now married to, he moved into my house. I just bought it, and we weren't in a relationship long enough for us to buy a property together. It was too much of a commitment. And I'm only mentioning it because he basically paid for half the mortgage, but I wasn't expecting him to.
Right.
I wasn't anticipating it. And then I basically saved his money, and I saved £10,000, and this would be not far off 25 years ago now. So it's quite a sizable chunk. And I said to him, I think we should buy a property. And David, he's like, what? and so my dad used to look after other people's properties. He was basically a kind of home agent. He used to do all sorts of things, and that was just one of them. And I thought, I can do better than that. Let's buy them. So in the first year, we bought 4. We got kind of into it, and then we bought another one, and then we ended up with 8. And at one point, we managed them all ourselves. They're all local, and we understood enough to know how to write a reasonable tenancy agreement. But we understood having other streams of income, really good, not to rely solely on one, and also the idea of having income that's not earned.
Okay, so a form of passive income. Would you describe property as passive?
Not especially. So it depends on if you get somebody to take care of it all for you, or whether you take care of it yourself. So at one point, like I said, we took care of all of our properties ourselves, and that was not passive. So there always seemed to be something going on.
Right.
So my husband's also a clinician, and we would run through all our properties every week like a ward round.
Right.
So we'd go through them all alphabetically, so we would know that needs the boiler needs replacing, or the loose blocks, or whatever it is. Okay, so there was stuff that would generally, there'd be something that we needed to address. And then the ultimate is when you sell the properties, which we've sold most of our properties now, and then you release capital. Obviously you're taxed on it, but that's it's brought in some passive income, or some capital income that we wouldn't have earned.
Okay, so talking of passive income then, what brought you to Utility Warehouse? How did you end up getting involved in Utility Warehouse? And then remind us, you were telling us your husband told you when you gave up your day job about maybe you should pick it up again. So tell us that story.
Okay, so I mentioned that I'm a very sensible kind of person, and I had permanent contracts in the health service. And then one contract I had was a 1-year contract, which made me nervous. And I found this publication called The Independents, which is a little bit of newspaper, and it was actually on the ground. What possessed me to pick it up, I don't know, but I did. I picked it up outside an estate agency, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. So and the thought process went like this: if my contract's not renewed, I'll do that. And I didn't know what really that was.
Yeah.
And it was Utility Warehouse. And there was a phone number of a guy on the back, and we agreed to meet up. And his name's Richard. And I joined the business, and that is 17 years ago now.
Okie doke, right.
So I did the training, and I got started, and I gathered about 40 customers, and I liked it, and I enjoyed it. And I didn't understand really the ramifications of it, because I thought I need to get some customers, but I didn't understand really the what's behind it. Okay. And then I had this kind of big life-changing diagnosis, and at that point this is when my husband said, do that thing, which was UW. Right. So I packed in my career. Literally, I gave my notice. Nobody in 15 years, people didn't say, what are you doing? Where are you going? What are you going to be doing? And I think they just made assumptions that obviously I've got another job somewhere. Right. And so it was a sobering experience, because I thought I was more or less the bee's knees.
Right.
and I wasn't. It's just one other member of staff. The fact that I would work really, really long hours, if if a piece of a report needed writing, I would think more or less nothing of staying up till 3 a.m. to complete it, because that was what needed.
Yeah.
So I went from that I stepped out of the whole corporate life to doing UW more or less full time.
Okay. That was a bit of a change of lifestyle then, from all those long hours that you were doing.
It was massive. It was absolutely massive. So I would be often in work by 7:30, and I would work till 6, maybe 6:30, 7. And that would be my regular kind of life. And at one point I lived away from home. So I would leave at like 5 a.m. on a Monday morning, sometimes on a Sunday night, and I wouldn't get home till about 8 p.m. on a Friday. Now I did sleep somewhere during the week, but what I didn't realize was that the pressure and stress that I put myself under was so dramatic. I'm absolutely convinced I was cooking my MS at that point. I just didn't know it.
Yeah. That can't be healthy for you if it's sustained over a long period of time, can it?
No, absolutely not. And not good for marriage either. So we are together. We did stay together, but it did put a huge amount of pressure under us. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm guessing that you've been in that corporate structure before. Now you're in a much more entrepreneurial environment. I know you've been entrepreneurial with the property stuff, but you're in a much more entrepreneurial environment. So what have you done to work on you, to help you to develop, personally?
Okay. So, in Utility Warehouse training, I think on the very first training, we were introduced into this concept called personal development. Now, in my professional career, we had CPD, continuing professional development, but personal development's different. So I was introduced to, I was suggested that I listen to different people on audio books and read books. And when you read, it goes in differently to how you hear and listen. So I'm going to share a couple of books that I started reading that have really helped change my way of thinking. So this is one of them.
The Slight Edge. Okay.
A guy called Jeff Olson. So when you hear or see people who you think they've made this an amazing success and it's happened overnight, what this book describes is that no, it's the seemingly really small, insignificant little changes that we make for the good or less good that accumulate into big changes. And Guy Garvey from Elbow, he put it just so beautifully. He said, when he won an award for one of their songs, that he was a 19-year overnight success.
Just the accumulation of doing all those things correctly over 19 years led to that moment. Yeah, exactly.
But people don't see the 19 years; they just see the ta-da success. Yeah. And actually, the Beatles are not that dissimilar. So they put in hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of work in Hamburg. It didn't happen all by itself,
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to share another really, really great book.
Okay.
This is Think and Grow Rich by a guy called Napoleon Hill. Now,
it's a classic, isn't it?
It is a classic. So it's actually a very old book. I think it was published in 1937. So it's not far off 100 years old. And what this guy did was he interviewed something like the 100 most successful guys, and they were all guys at that time, men, in America. And he teased out what makes these people successful. And basically, the book is about people who are super successful think differently. And this is Think Differently and Grow Rich, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
Super, really, really amazing book.
Fabulous.
So with doing the do, you have to also incorporate thinking and being differently from, especially going from being in a job where you're basically going to get paid, if you do a really bad job, then there'll be consequences. But I would do a really good job. I was very proud to do a good job, and ultimately it was more or less meaningless. It's a shame to say that, but it was. And the personal development has really helped guide me. Can I share another book, Stuart?
Of course you can. Yeah, these are all really valuable for people because it helps to get a flavour of, one, how this has helped you, but also if they take the time to read those books that you've just recommended, it will make a massive difference for them.
Definitely. And actually, I've got a whole bookcase full of super books, and they all do slightly different things. And Jeff Olson, he actually refers to, he'll read a book and then a year later, he'll come back and he'll think somebody's messed with the pages because he's become different. He's grown within that year. And so you think, oh, it makes a lot more sense now. So context in reading this stuff is also really, really important. Right. So my next book is completely different. It's called Being the Real You by Sarah Allen Masters. And it's you can dip in. It's a really, really gorgeous read. Here we go. I've just literally opened it up randomly. Taking ownership. Our life, heart, and happiness is our responsibility alone. And yet the victim mindset dilutes the human potential. I won't carry on, but it's a really super book. I find these books so powerful that I actually send copies out to people in my team. If they're having a bit of an issue with something, I'll try and pull out the book that I think would be really appropriate. So
I think that's a really good way to help people, isn't it? Because sometimes you talk to people and you think, from what you've just told me, this is the title that would help you right now. And, you know, if you can point them in the right direction.
Yeah, and I would also say this is where time comes in, because people will say it's so common. I haven't time. I've no time. Now, we've all got time. We all have the same amount of time. I know it comes as something of a shock, but you know, we all have 24 hours. We're all blessed or cursed with the same amount. It's completely how you choose to allocate your time, or you let other people allocate it for you. It's entirely up to you, really. And so you could binge watch, and then you've allocated 4 hours to something really pleasurable, really enjoyable. But that means you haven't got the 4 hours to possibly read something that is really going to help grow or change or help with your skills in doing something that's going to grow your income.
Yeah, it's generally not time that we lack. It's generally about where are we prioritizing our time? What are we doing in the 24 hours, the 168 hours a week that we get? I know when we've broken this down in trainings before and actually got people to say, like, how many hours are you working and how many hours are you sleeping? And you add up everything that they've got to do. Most people are left with enough time to have another full-time job. They just don't use that time right now for doing something more productive. So yeah, it's a choice, isn't it?
Totally. And I'd like to mention the fantastic word why. So it's what if you know why you do something, then you'll continue it, or you'll choose to make a change.
Yeah.
So if I think back to my own kind of development within Utility Warehouse, my why at first was quite nebulous and vague. You know, if I don't get my 1-year contract replaced, then I'll just do this thing, which wasn't a strong enough reason to really go for it. And then the diagnosis completely changed everything almost overnight. And
Gave you a real reason.
Yeah, and I meet plenty of people who have a vague reason and a powerful reason. And that is a great driver.
You can see it in them.
Yeah, can I share another really amazing book? I haven't got it here, but I've recently read one of Elon Musk's biographies, and his why is basically populating Mars. Simple.
Okay.
So he recognizes that the planet can't sustain us, or we will wreck this planet. We need to go elsewhere. And his whole drive is about that.
Okay. And that was a biography somebody wrote of him?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Fabulous. So before we close, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned before when we were talking that you've also, because of the time you've got, you've been able to give back a little bit and actually get involved in something that's much more about you giving back to the community.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for asking about that. Okay. So there is an amazing organisation called Promise Works. They're based local to me in Somerset, which is not my it's not my county, but very close to me. And this organisation helps young people who are troubled in some way. They maybe they've had a brush with the law, or they're just not functioning very well, and they allocate people who are prepared to give up their time. This is the key. It's all about time, to spend quality time with these young people. And I'm still on my training program at the minute, and I'm halfway through, and I'm really excited about it. And actually, I've said to the people who are running it, and it is a charitable organisation, that I think it should be national. So we're learning a lot about development, about how the brain works, about communication styles, all sorts of elements. And it's very, very important that us adults who will mentor a young person are one constant. So the commitment's a big one. It's 2 years.
Right.
And so I had to give it a lot of thought about, am I ready to be able to make that kind of commitment? Because the worst thing you can do is commit to a young person and then say, oh, sorry, I've changed my mind. very damaging. So it's an amazing program, and I'm looking forward to really getting stuck in. Yeah.
It's really good that, as you said, having that time freedom that you've now got has given you the choice to be able to do something. Lots of people would like to do something where they give back, but the regular commitments that they have, where they've got to be in a place of work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or in your case, Monday to Sunday, however many hours it was, means that you can't always make those choices. And making the choice to get active with UW, making the choice to build your business, has given you that time freedom. Fabulous. Louise, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. I know we've had some people watching live. There'll be other people watching on the replay. If anybody is watching this and they like the sound of the changes that you've made to your life, then get back to whichever one of us asked you to watch this. So if it was me, come back to me. If it was Louise, Louise will gladly speak to you. And if somebody else has shared this video with you, then get back to them and let them know, yeah, you definitely want a piece of this lifestyle.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Louise. Speak soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.